Seems like the city of Detroit would never lack any infamous stories of treacherous men rise to money, power, and respect. Today I want to talk about a character you may not have heard of and one that you may have heard of. He is named John the Breadman Bass, one half leader of the organization called the Dog Pound, originally formed on Detroit's east side, but it's speculation that it started on the west, but it don't matter. This particular group eventually split into two factions, one half led by John and the other by his brother Patrick, who frequently bump heads in a fight for total control. This may be a more worse situation than what Alpo did to Rich. Now, eventually, in this chaotic, murderous era, John Bass met another major player that was the face of YBI. That's Young Boys Incorporated, which was a major get money clique who employed children to move their product. This is well documented. This man was none other than Butch Jones, who he met from that particular organization. A smooth talker, persuasive, infamous figure throughout Detroit. Fresh off, I believe, his fourth prison bit for one more major drug run, or however he could get money. In order for you to comprehend the perfect storm that came about, I have to delve in to both Breadman and Butch Jones. But let's start here. From 1989 to 1997, John Breadman Bass formed and led a drug trafficking operation called the Dog Pound, along with some of his family, including his brother Patrick Webb, who I stated earlier Breadman had frequent altercations with, even once drawing guns on each other at a nightclub. I think that was around 95. Just to remind you, this is who Parker Eel, aka PE, spoke about during our phone interview he called in from prison and gave. A federal prosecutor once referred to the Dog Pound as a murderous group, ruthless and almost psychotic. At its height, it's believed that this group ran through over 50 kilos of coca, which had a value around 20K per key wholesale in that period. A time broken down and distributed has a value as high as 60K per key. So this is well over $1 million organization if that's all they moved, or maybe that's all the feds know about. But while getting money in multiple states and living the high life, the fallout with Breadman's brother Patrick came to full around 93. That's when they just wasn't messing with each other. Many blame it going as far as it did because of John's introduction and relationship with Butch Jones, who was very savvy, cunning, and straight manipulative. If you ever done time in prison, you learn the gift of gab and the art of war, divide and conquer. An unseasoned mind stands no chance in this game compared to a four-time offender who has had many years to master his craft of manipulation while incarcerated. Raymond Peoples was another prominent figure in Detroit's underworld, also connected to YBI, who also at one point split into factions itself, right? YBI split into factions itself. You got the Raymond Peoples, Nut, and them. Then you had the Butch Jones guys. But we will discuss his rise and fall in another segment. But Peoples was in competition with Butch Jones before his bit, allegedly, right? Once again, alleged loyalists to Raymond Peoples robbed Butch Jones' house where his wife and children were staying when he was in prison, and then turned around and tried to rob it again just 2 days later. They really were desperate or wanted to put Butch Jones out of business for good. The second robbery came short of success, according to the testimony of Butch's wife, whose name was Portia. She was on probation for a role in the 1982 bust. She shotgunned one of the robbers named Gracie as he ran from the house. Butch's son Momo, who was 10 years old at the time, is alleged to have possibly taken place in the shooting as well. And in court testimony, begged his mother to let him finish the wounded Gracie off with the weapon the 10-year-old owned. Not sure if this is true or not. There's a lot of proven fabricated stories surrounding Butch Jones, who once upon a time pleaded with the public to forgive him and perpetuated the image of someone who has been redeemed and been reformed and done with the game, so on and so forth. You know how that go. Or maybe he was corrected and just reverted back to his old ways when the money was tight. I know how that is too. Who knows though? Back in the city of Detroit in the early 1990s, after 8 years behind bars for his role in being the convicted ringleader of the YBI gang, Butch had no intention of going clean, despite his rhetoric of rehabilitation to the press and telling tales of wanting to do everything in his power to dissuade young kids from a life on the streets, Jones went back into the drug and murder business, as quoted by my reference Scott Bernstein of the Gangster Report. Make sure y'all check him out. Anyway, once the intruder Gracie was shot, Butch's wife called for help from 18 members, which was a group inside of YBI that took care of all the dirty work for the organization. Y'all can look that up. That's Scandalous Butch and all them boys. Minutes later, the Big O, or they call it the Big O Bay or whatever, Spencer Holloway and Andre Williams. That's another prominent name, Spencer Holloway. Remember that name? We're going to be going into that too. Led by Obey, they tortured Gracie for the names of his co-conspirators, and according to Andre Williams, who eventually turned informant on the gang in court, killed him by unloading a Uzi clip into Gracie and leaving his corpse in an East Side alley on Cardoni and Russell block areas, right? Apparently, Gracie told on everybody else involved. Whether he told the truth or not, bodies dropped behind it. A man by the name of Garrett death was linked to the robbery. Gracie told the A-team or whatever. But prior to Garrett's murder in June, his stepfather, Dennis Bankston, I believe his name was, who authorities also connected to the robbery, was found slumped over the steering wheel of his car, shot to death in a parking lot on the northeast side of the city. The week following Garrett's murder, Reggie Stringer, another alleged accomplice in Gracie's break-in, was found dead in his car on Winder Street. Baby Ray Peoples came home from prison on parole. Baby Ray Peoples, not his Peoples, but that's his name, Ray Peoples, or Raymond Peoples, right? Baby Ray Peoples came home from prison on parole at the tender age of 29 in late April of 1985, and at least according to his family, tried to go straight. He got married in June and was looking to get involved in the real estate business, but it never manifested. His past specifically, and most likely his beef with Butch Jones, caught up with him on August 10th when he was killed. Gun sitting in his beige colored Chevy Citation. I never heard of that, but maybe I should have looked it up. But he was waiting to meet an associate, and many more people, too many of the name, also died in People's Circle, and many went to prison in Butch's Circle, including the infamous Kurt McGirt, Scandalous Butch, so on and so forth. Kurt McGirt was somebody who the community called the bloodthirsty monster, who had been handling the dirty work for his cousin Butch Jones since 15 years of age up until 19 at the time of his arrest. But I must say, Kurt is in the community doing wonderful things with the More Science Temple of America and is not perpetuating none of that old stuff that he was on. So we can say that the science really, really helped him. Okay. I got to state that because I don't want people on here. Oh man, we talking about some stuff that's well documented and, you can read up on, but he's doing great from what I hear. Haven't met the man yet, but you can check him out on my brother Al Prophet page. Anyway, after, 8 years out of 12 incarcerated Butch Jones, he returned home. And to his amazement, a smaller group called the Dog Pound had rose to prominence, headed by a notorious figure nicknamed Bread Man, right? And they were already affiliates before Butch went in, and you know Butch wanted in that. It's about money, extortion, robbery, murder. Butch went in. Bread Man at the time was suspected to be connected to over a dozen homicides, and the feds suspected Butch Jones to be connected with about 75 gang-style executions. Butch basically showed up on Breadman's doorstep and said, "I'm with you. Half this is, Dog Pound burden is mine." Too enamored and intimidated to refuse his declaration, Bass welcomed Butch on into the business with a smile and face, knowing at the very least being associated with the former YBI boss could only increase his street cred. The 2-year run before Bass indictment in 97 was lucrative for both. I mean, it went on a little bit longer than that. I'm talking about with them. It was 2 to 4 years or something like that. But Bass' brother was a problem during this time. Bass started speaking to people about killing his stepbrother in the weeks after the incident at the club where they pulled guns out on him, according to a federal informant. By 1996, Bass was getting winds of rumors that Webb was looking to put a contract on his head, likely from Butch antagonizing the situation. So he ordered Webb's execution without pause. A high-ranking Dog Pound lieutenant named Fat Mo would eventually carried out after June 1996 meeting that Bass called for Anthony Fat Mo Shelton and his right-hand man, Carl Pookie Gooden. They attend the meeting and states to Fat Mo that Ram Webb, that's Patrick Webb, that's that's Patrick's nickname, Ram, is talking to the feds about the Dog Pound hit squad known as the Monterey Madmen he oversaw. Now, hours later, Fat Mo Shelton and his hit squad gun ran Webb down in the driveway. Webb was declared dead on the scene. Now, this is where it gets deeper. For Bass to cover his tracks, Bass and his Lieutenant Cornelius Cornbread Webb whacked Fat Mo in cold blood himself. Webb fired the shots as his man's Cornelius sat in the getaway vehicle. He went out and put work in himself. Butch Jones' run lasted until around 2001. Allegedly, this time, Butch's main income was off extortion and dogfighting. Allegedly. Bass was indicted in 1997. Butch Jones, at the time, had stole control over the Dog Pound until his bust for narcotics racketeering and accessory to murder charges in 2001. When Butch was first indicted in 2001, the feds sought the death penalty, but due to having decent counsel, he only received 30 years. He also, at some point, allegedly became an informant on his bunkie who was a terrorist. I'll find the documents and post them if I can. Allegedly, he told on them. But I did read the documents a while ago, couldn't find them right away, but so we're going to say allegedly for now. Prosecutors also sought the death penalty for Bass. Also, but he was spared the death penalty by the jury, but was handed 2 life without parole terms to serve. Oh, it get deeper than that. Just at age 34, you got life without parole. 2 of them. 21 years later, COVID struck. Bass filed a motion for compassionate release due to high risk of death due to pre-existing condition like his obesity, his heart problems, so on and so forth. He was granted it, but not without objection. The prosecutor stated the drug leader often employed violent methods of control over members of his organization, keeping them in line and punishing those who dared cross him. In one instance detailed by the attorney Gotez filing, right? He said Bass shot one of his workers in the chest, sprayed him with alcohol, set him on fire, and used a hot poker on him. Let's see what burning flesh smells like. They said Bass said, right? Attorney Gotez said Bass' crimes are not surprising considering his upbringing. Court documents state Bass and his 8 half siblings were often left to their own devices as their mother struggled with substance abuse and neglecting to provide the necessities of her children, instead opting to spend what money they had on drugs, right? Bass' history does not excuse his crimes. However, it offers essential context for the circumstances under which they were committed. An important factor in evaluating whether a sentence reduction is appropriate. Documents for his release state, the court finds that the nature of Bass's crimes balanced with the circumstances under which they were committed shows that Bass' 22-year incarceration is sufficient but not greater than necessary to fulfill the purposes of his punishment. Bass also assisted as an informant for homicide cases in Michigan Eastern District, providing investigators with insight since 2014, right? His supposed rehabilitation was common, not exceptional. Gotez writes, taking courses in prison is common. Corresponding with family members is common. Having a mediocre prison disciplinary record is common. Providing useless information about other inmates is common, especially whereas here, Bass had every desire to reduce his sentence via a substantial assistance motion. Bass was an adult, not a juvenile, when he planned and committed these murders and acts of violence. They were calculated offenses, not crimes of passion or something that additional maturity would dissuade him from doing. Bass has also not aged out of his ability to harm people. He ended up getting an early release, right? Ended up getting that early release. But, the U.S. District Judge Arthur Tarnow acknowledged Bass' horrific crimes, but released him still January 22nd, saying he deserved a well-earned second chance after getting an education in prison, becoming a certified life coach, and other factors. February of 2022, he was, sorry about the audio, kind of messed up, but yep, February, he was reincarcerated. I wouldn't have went back, but hey, tell me how y'all like that story, man. Hey, look, if you listen all the way to the end, I want to thank you. Please press the like button. You watching it already. You already subscribed to me. Just press the like button. Damn. Peace.
What up, though, Detroit? So, you already know the deal. Just giving a shout out to Petty Tupac TV. Like, comment, subscribe. You already know the deal. We have to support everybody's businesses, and you already know how it goes. We support each other. You know what I'm saying? Make Detroit win.